An unfortunate consequence of intense test match rugby is injuries. Now, in the lead up to the Rugby World Cup, we've seen some big names, the likes of Romain Ntamack of France, ruled out through injury, which is really devastating in the lead up to a World Cup. Now, this got me thinking, what for each team are the players in which they could really not do without? So in today's video, I'm going to go through my top 3 most important players for each team. Now, this means if that player was to get injured, they would have the biggest impact on a team in their preparation for the big test matches in the World Cup. Now, I'm going to start off with England and work my way through. Now, plenty of teams have many names, big name players in which they could really not do without, but this is just my take and my interpretation of what I think and which players I think are most important for each team. So I'm going to start off with England, and I'm going to go with Jamie George, I'm going to go with Manu Tuilagi, and I'm going to go with Freddie Steward. Now, Jamie George is the hooker for England, and he is responsible for the line-out darts. Now, I do think it'd be a hammer blow for England if they had to lose him, due to the lack of strength and depth in the position, with only Jack Walker and Theo Dan, who both are massively inexperienced, being the replacements. Manu Tuilagi is the only real English centre which has the experience and the ability to really hit that ball over the advantage line and create momentum in attack. And I've gone with Freddie Steward, as similar to Jamie George, there's not an awful lot of strength and depth in this position, with only probably Anthony Watson being able to cover fullback, maybe Max Malins, but Freddie Steward is one of the most consistent English performers and a player England really can't do without. For Wales, I'm going to go with Jack Morgan, I'm going to go with Liam Williams, and I'm going to go with Dan Biggar. Now, Jack Morgan, the Welsh co-captain, I believe, with Dowie Lake, if I'm not mistaken, his work rate is just incredible, and the amount of work he gets through in an 80-minute game is just phenomenal. Against England, I think he made just a crazy number of tackles, like 20 plus tackles, plenty of carries, and he's a really just incredible player, great workhorse for Wales. Liam Williams, he's just incredible at dominating the air. If Wales want to go out past the group stages, get out of their group and compete in the quarterfinals, then he needs to be on form, and he's a very consistent performer for Wales, and just incredibly brave player, and in a team in which is rather inexperienced, he provides a great level of experience to sort of guide them through test matches. Likewise with Dan Biggar, one of the biggest names in Welsh rugby since the retirement of Alan Wyn-Jones and Justin Tipuric. He's one of those players that is just made for test match games and performs in the high pressurised environments. And due to the lack of depth in the 10 jersey, with what really is Owen Williams, and unfortunately I can't remember the other Welsh 10's name, he really does need to turn up. For Australia, I've gone with Will Skelton, I've gone with Carter Gordon, and I've gone with Jordan Petaia. Now, Australia are coming off the back of, I believe, 5 back-to-back losses. Last one was only a narrow defeat to the All Blacks, but nevertheless, they're on a losing streak. Now, Will Skelton has been named as the captain for the Australian squad, a player that is used to the winning feeling at club level, with Saracens winning European Cups and then with La Rochelle doing the exact same achievement. He knows what it's like to win, and it's really important Will Skelton tries to sort of embed that feeling in the Australian setup. He's a huge player, and with his size, he also carries huge responsibility, not only on the pitch, but now off the pitch with his leadership responsibilities. Carter Gordon is the only fly half for Australia, and they've got other players that have the ability to play 10. But look, Carter Gordon is the player Eddie Jones has invested massively in terms of game time minutes over the last few games, with the notable exclusion of Quade Cooper. Now, another player, Jordan Petaia, a player in which is just incredibly talented. Just the raw talent on the relatively young player means he carries a bit of a burden on his shoulder in terms of bringing the youth and the exuberance, the speed and the pace into the attack. Now, he's a player in which can really perform in the big games, but he's not really had the opportunity to do so with the lack of winnable games for Australia. He'd often find himself in positions in which, you know, he hasn't got the quality of players around him for himself to show off his abilities. Now, moving on to Ireland, I go with Ty Byrne, I'm going to go with Johnny Sexton, and I'm going to go with Hugo Keenan. Now, Tyburn is the sort of one of the most impressive locks of recent times and massively turned up in the Irish series win over the All Blacks. He's a player in which does more than just the duties of a second row, with the ability to jackal and disrupt ball, not only in line-outs but at the ruck time also. He's going to be pivotal in terms of Ireland's chances of going far in the competition, as the Irish pack will be competing against some fiercely physical teams, and it will be their point of difference, their ability at the breakdown, rather than just their brute strength to overcome the likes of massive rugby powerhouses like South Africa. Johnny Sexton. So Johnny will play his first game of rugby in a few months in the World Cup due to his ban for his discussion, let's call it, his fierce discussion. I'm not going to go too much into it, but his discussion with Jacko Piper when he was sidelined for the La Rochelle victory over Leinster at the Aviva Stadium back in May, I believe. So Johnny won't play a game of rugby until the World Cup. Now, the reason I've selected him as one of the most important players is the fact that I don't really feel like the backup 10 for Ireland being Jack Crowley or Byrne, I don't feel like they've really grown into the shirt in the same way. And especially with the test match against England, despite being sort of a comprehensive victory, I don't feel like they've massively sort of been cohesive, and I don't believe that Byrne's really gelled in that 10 jersey. This is being recorded before the rest of the warm-up games for Ireland, so maybe Byrne does grow into the jersey. Hugo Keenan is one of Ireland's most consistent performers, just an incredible player, and I believe he's had pretty much all of the game time at fullback for Ireland, and I don't really know if there's a massive amount of depth in that position. I'm not too sure actually who would fill in at 15. I mean, I suppose your likes of Matt Hansons could fill in there, but I believe Hugo Keenan at fullback is just the rock in the Irish team, which they really can't do without. Moving on to Scotland, I'm going to go with Xander Fagerson. Excuse my handwriting. Let's do that one a little bit better. Xander Fagerson, Jamie Ritchie, and Finn Russell. Now, Xander Fagerson is, for me, a clear choice here due to the lack of depth in his position. So at tight head, I believe the backup is Nell, WP Nell, and against France, I felt like he really, really struggled. So I think it is imperative for Ireland to keep Xander Fagerson fit. And I think he's just imperative in terms of the scrum success. I believe France really dominated in that area in Xander Fagerson's absence. Now, Jamie Ritchie, the Scottish captain, it's really easy to just include captains on all of these teams because obviously your captain's imperative for your team's success. But Jamie Ritchie was really of late showing me some great skills around the breakdown, in which I thought was just world class, especially in the French game. His ability to track behind the line, and as soon as there's a tackle being made, lock onto that ball has really impressed me. Now, Finn Russell is the obvious choice pretty much in the Scottish team. Now, Finn Russell is just the maverick, and with Blake Kinghorn, he's a reasonable backup 10, but I believe Finn Russell is the sort of player that can turn Scotland from sort of a solid team, solid top 10 world ranked team, to a top 5 and a world-class team on their day. So Finn Russell is imperative to Scotland's success. Now, moving on to South Africa, I'm going to go with Sia Khaleesi, Manny Lebok, and Eben Etzebeth. Now, Sia Khaleesi is the inspirational leader of South Africa, and I think he's one of those players that brings double what they can do on the pitch, off of the pitch. His ability to lead a team, and players just seem so inspired from his words, and he definitely leads by example on the field, especially at the breakdown and through some just incredibly powerful carries. Manny Lebok is almost carrying the hopes of South African rugby on his shoulders. He'll be taking the goal-kicking responsibilities at the World Cup, I presume, and with the absence of Hondre Pollard, it's going to be really important for Manny Lebok to sort of take that 10 jersey and make it his own. He struggled of recent weeks, I've found, sort of connecting the forwards to the backs, and his goal kicking has been a little bit subpar, but I have seen him play test matches for South Africa where he's been really, really hot on the money with his kicking and all-around game. So it's how can he bring his full package into the World Cup. Ebenezer in the second row, I just think he's one of those players that's just simply irreplaceable. I mean, you could bring in Snyman and then partner him with Mostert, but no player can really do what Ebenezer can do. His all-round ability of physicality, attack and defence, as well as his presence in the line-out, would be sorely missed if he was to miss the World Cup, which obviously, hopefully, he doesn't. France, I'm going to go with Gregory Aldrit. I'm going to go with, obviously, Antoine Dupont, and I'm going to go with Jonathan Danty. Gregory Aldrit is the talisman for France. He's the player in which always is consistent at racking up carries. He didn't overly impress me against Fiji in France's last game that I watched. But look, he on his day is just world class, and it's just his sheer amount of work he gets through carries, tackles, sort of influences in rucks. He's just sort of the all-round number 8. Talking about all-round players, you've got Antoine Dupont, who just brings so much more than what a 9 needs to bring. His running game, he's so physical in defence. His ability, like, just listen to these words I'm about to say. He can box kick off of both feet. Now that is just phenomenal. I don't know any 9 in the game that can really do that, and I just think Dupont is just one of those phenomenal, I think I'm going to call him a generational talent. He's just an incredible player. Now on to Jonathan Danty. Now, look, France do have good substitutes for the 12 jersey. I mean, you could shift Fiku in. They've got Moefana who can fill in there as well. But I think Jonathan Danty is really crucial to their attack and defence. Now, in the Six Nations, where Danty wasn't available, Moefana did come into the 12 jersey, but I just didn't feel like the French attack could click the same. I felt when Danty came back, he just had a massive influence on proceedings. Moving into the All Blacks, I'm going to go with Ardie Savea, Aaron Smith, and Geordie Barrett. Now, Ardie Savea is the obvious choice. Same way as Gregory Aldrit, a huge amount of work rate, but he really does have the X factor. You know, close to the line, there's not a player in which I think it's harder to defend. His ability to just fight through contact, to sort of find a weak point, twist out of tackles. He's just an incredible player. Aaron Smith, the scrum half for the All Blacks. Now, Aaron Smith is one of the most experienced players on this whiteboard, and has been playing very well of recent times. Just once again, incredible passing and great service to the fly half. But I think the All Blacks, in terms of strength and depth in the 9 jersey, I'm not too sure it's all there. Finlay Christie is a very good player in his own right, but I didn't feel like he clicked too well when the All Blacks played against Australia at home. I didn't feel like he had the same effect on the game as Aaron Smith would. And then Cameron Roigard, a player which I think is really exciting from the Crusaders, and I just feel like he's just too inexperienced to really put in at the deep end at the moment. He sort of needed maybe 4 or 5 test matches to really prove himself. So I think Aaron Smith is crucial to the All Black success. Geordie Barrett in the midfield in the 12 jersey, recently, well, not recently, but in the last few years has converted from fullback. Now, he's a player who is vital for the All Blacks attack in the back line. He's one of those players that can really do it all, but most importantly, adds the punch up the middle. He's the player that can take it off of a line out on the front foot with a beautiful pass from Aaron Smith and really hit that line and create some real dangerous attacking momentum for the All Blacks. I'm going to move on to Argentina. I'm going to go with Pablo Matera, Santiago Carreras, and Mateo Carreras. Pablo Matera is the spiritual leader of the Argentinian forward pack and the team as a whole. A player in which has had a stint over in New Zealand playing Super Rugby, and he really just looks classy. His ability to beat tackles, and especially in Argentina's victory over the All Blacks last year, he was just imperative in the victory. Just incredible amount of carries, the ability to carry with just such great tenacity, aggression, and really test defences. Now, Santiago Carreras is the player in which has the weight of Argentinians' World Cup hopes on his shoulder, I feel. Now, Argentina, since Hernandez, I don't feel like they've had a 10 in which can really take them around the park. Now, Carreras is more of a fullback, I believe, for Gloucester. He does play 10, but I think his preferred position is on the wing or maybe at fullback. Now, he has exceptional pace and agility for a fly half, but with the pace and agility comes the sort of lacking fundamentals of a fly half, of the basic pass kick, kicking game. Now, he doesn't have to do the goal kicking because of Emiliano Boffelli, but I feel Santiago Carreras hasn't really gelled with the other Argentinian backline players to form a formidable attack. I believe Argentina's recent successes have come through the forward pack mainly, as I don't feel like the backline has clicked awfully well, although it is also ahead of the likes of your England, your Wales. They're leaps and bounds above them, but in terms of being a world-class team, I think it's imperative that he gels with his outside backs. Now, Mateo Carreras is the Newcastle winger, in which I think he's I think he might be the only winger on this board. Now, he is just a phenomenal player. He could step you inside a phone box, and in terms of Argentinian backs that can really sort of turn the game on its head, create that moment of magic in which you just didn't see coming, he is that man. Exceptional pace, exceptional footwork, a brilliant defender also. It's going to be important for Argentina's World Cup hopes. Argentina's World Cup hopes. Now, let me know what you think of each of these players' selections. I'm sure there'll be players that you could argue are much more important than the ones I've selected, but these are just my thoughts, and hopefully I've justified them reasonably well. So let me know what you think of the most important players are for each country, and I'll be sure to respond to all of your comments. But yeah, thank you very much for watching.